Hello and welcome. So this is episode 1 of ChilliChump's Beginner's Guide to Growing Chili Peppers from Seed to Source. And today we're going to start at the beginning, which is sowing seeds and getting them to germinate. So let's get started. So I'm not sure if you know this or not, but birds actually can't sense the heat from a chili pepper. So it doesn't affect them the way it affects us and the way it affects other mammals like dogs and cats and things like that. Birds don't feel it at all. And that's a pretty cool thing because what happens is birds will eat the chili peppers and carry those seeds long distances. So it'll spread the seed far and wide. If it was a mammal, something on the land, it's not going to spread the seed as far. So it's quite a good biological response, and that's probably why chili peppers are hot. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and replicate a little bit of what happens to the seed when it's inside the bird's belly. And that's what we call chemical scarification. And we do that by making a very weak tea, just normal tea, black tea, and let that steep for a while. And once you've done that, then we get on to the next step. So now that the tea has been steeping for a little while, we're going to dilute it a little bit, and I'm going to add some water. It's going to be cold, but that's not a problem. You can use lukewarm water if you like, but it won't make too much of a difference. So I've diluted this about half with the tea that I made and half with water, and now we need to start soaking the seeds. I use these cups because I had a few lying around, so we've got these here. They're just normal mugs, cups, doesn't matter. You're just going to need one for each type of seed that you're going to be putting in the solution. So what you're going to make sure you do is you've got to label these seeds. So the last thing you want to happen is that you make a mistake and you put the wrong seed into the container that you're growing, and you end up growing a different pepper than you actually thought it was. So we're going to label this, and we just need a permanent marker, so you make sure that it doesn't come off. These are Tabasco. So we've labeled that, and now we're going to add some seeds into this. I would put them in dry, add the tea afterwards, and that's just so that you put the right number of seeds, and if you make a mistake you can always take one out. Be careful touching, these ones aren't too bad, but if you are growing super hots, if you touch those seeds they will burn you later, so just be careful. That's about 8 seeds. Now we pour some of the liquid inside there. You don't need a lot. Just make sure they get covered and stick your label inside there. So there we go, and we'll do the rest like that. So my recommendation, if you are a first-time chili grower, for the best success I would look at the super chili. It's a hybrid that's been bred to have a very early season, as well as having abundant amount of chilies that are actually pretty tasty. So they're about the size of a peri peri pepper or a Tabasco pepper. That's the sort of size they are, but they're very bushy and they're very easy to grow, and you'll see success quite quickly. So I would recommend, if you are a first-time grower, go for the super chili. So now we just leave these overnight, so about 12 hours or so. So now that the seeds have been soaking for about 12 hours now, they are ready to put into the soil. So I'm going to move all these aside, and then we'll start with the actual soil. So the soil we're going to be using to start the seeds is John Innes seed starting or seed sowing compost. And the only real difference with this is that it's a very fine grain. You can use your own compost if you want. It's just a lot easier to get this. It only costs a couple pounds and you get some lovely fine compost. What we need to do is we need to start filling some seed trays. So I'm just using these seed trays here. Something to bear in mind, you might need to do some work on this. These are the seed trays, and this is one of my small heated propagators. You've got to make sure that the seed tray actually fits inside this. So you can see I need to do a bit of trimming just to make sure it sits down nice and tight in there. So let me get that done quickly. There we go, we can see that's nice, perfect fit. We need to put some soil in here. You don't have to do it this way. There's a few other ways you can do this. Some people like to use these, and I used to use these. So this is basically a coir plug. It's essentially coconut fiber, and you soak it in water and it expands, and you put the seed inside there. I don't like using these too much. It ended up being a lot simpler to do it this way, and to be honest, a lot cheaper. And it's a lot easier to move the seeds around. We're going to fill this up with some of the seed starting compost. Try and remove any sticks or anything like that. Break up any clumps. You just want to give your seeds the best chance at a start that you can. And remember one thing, seeds want to grow, right? I've seen seeds start in the worst possible conditions. Basically, you just want to give them the best chance at a start. And also, if you have short seasons, you want to make sure that they're as strong and healthy as you can possibly get them right from the beginning. Just to make sure that you keep them healthy, keep them strong. So there you go. We've done one tray. So now we've got the soil in there. It's time to get the seeds inside. So we're going to be planting some cherry bombs. So these are them here. I'll just use the tip of the label stick to get the seed, and then try not to touch the seed for a few different reasons. The main one being that it could really hurt you, because it could be a really hot one, but it'll stick to your finger. So we're gonna stick this inside there. There we go. And let's do the next one. So you just put it in the middle of that, and what you're going to do then is, you can use fingers if you want, it's up to you, but you're just going to sprinkle a bit of soil on top, about 1 or 2 centimeters. And that's it. Don't tap it down, because when we spray it with water a bit later on, it will automatically go down. And I'm going to carry on and do the rest of these seeds. Once you put all the seeds in and made sure that you've labeled them, you can see what I've done here is, if I've got a row, so these are cherry bombs, and there's 4 going across here, so I do it at the top of the row. So that one there, I've only got 1 seed in there, that's a jalapeno Goliath. So just make sure you label it so that you know what's what. And once you've done that, once you put the soil on top of it, then you're going to take a spray bottle. I mean, I've got this one here, but you don't need anything so fancy. You can use a normal spray bottle just like that. I'm doing quite a few here, so I'm lucky enough I have one of these, and that's what I'm going to use. So you don't want to soak it. You just want to give it a good spray down, make sure that it gets nicely wet. You don't want it to be sitting in water. There we go, that should be enough. So you see, I've just made sure the top layer has enough. And what you want to do is just have a look, because when you spray it down, it's going to settle the soil, and you might get a few things like that. I can see the seed over there. If you do see any seeds, just make sure you put a bit more soil on top, and then spray that down again. And that should be it. I can see another one over there. So that is now ready for me to plug in and wait for it to germinate. If you don't have a electric propagator like I do, which maintains a certain heat, if you have an airing closet, which normally maintains quite a decent temperature, you can put it in there. You can also put a small tray like this on top of maybe your skybox. Anywhere that's a little bit warm, on top of the fridge even. Anywhere you can maintain about 28 degrees Celsius, that's what you want. While the seeds are at this stage where you're trying to get them to germinate, You want to make sure that this here is closed, so maintains some moisture within this. Maintain the heat, of course, like I've already said. And you don't need any light. So until the seeds have come through, you don't need to worry about lights. Lights are going to be on the next episode, but this episode is just about getting your seeds ready for germination. So this here is my large heated box and my propagation chamber. So obviously I do quite a few seeds. I have a big greenhouse, so I need quite a lot of space. So you don't need anything fancy like this, but this is a really good one. If you can get hold of one, they're really good. You can control the temperature on this. So generally I stick it on about 28 when I'm germinating, and then turn it down a little bit once the seeds have come up. But this here, you can actually measure the temperature of the soil. The big difference between this and the other one is the other one just is a constant heat mat. You can't really control the temperature. It tries to get it at a decent temperature, but this one here you can actually control it. So this here you'd stick inside the soil. It's just a temperature probe, and this here will switch on and off depending on what the temperature of the soil is. So you can see I don't push anything down. I'm just using a bit of a jiggle like that to settle the soil. You don't want to push it down. You don't want to compact the soil because the seeds will have a hard time spreading their roots. At the same time, you don't want it too loose. You don't want air pockets inside here. So it's a good idea just to do that, just to make sure that it does settle down nicely. And there you go. Another little tip, the water that I use here is straight from my water butt, so it's off the roof, basically rainwater. You don't want to use, it's still going to grow, you'll still germinate the thing, but you don't want to really use tap water because of the chlorine. I like to use just fresh water from the rain. Another thing you can do is if you want to filter the water, that also helps. And that's it. These are ready now to go and be put away somewhere nice and warm. So this is about 2 days later after sowing the seeds. I have this up in my house just to help it keep nice and warm. So let's have a look. That's fine, there's still a lot of moisture in there. There's a seed poking out over there. So let's make sure we keep that covered. That's fine. So what you want to do during this stage is just make sure there's enough moisture in there just so that it doesn't go dry. The top of the soil shouldn't go dry, but at the same time it shouldn't be soaking wet. It shouldn't be sodden. Let's have a look. Nothing poking out here and plenty of moisture. Looks fine for now. Shouldn't expect any sort of growth until probably about a week. Once we're at about a week, that's when we'll start seeing some action. There's something to point out. I am using a towel underneath because I just don't want to ruin the carpet and my wife will kill me. It's also a good idea, especially at this early stage, you want to keep the moisture in as best as you can and keep it as warm as you can. So this one here, I'm pretty confident it's going to be at a decent temperature. This one here, the cheaper ones, they sometimes can battle a bit. They just have a small heating element. So sometimes it won't get up to the temperatures you might want. So a good idea is just to cover it up with a towel like I've done here. Just helps keep the warmth in, at least until they start showing some activity. So it's now been 6 days, so it's time to check on the seeds and see how they're doing. There we go. We have a seed popping out over there. There's a little loop. It's the jalapeno Goliath. That's doing well. Not any others in this one. Let's have a look at the big propagator. Oh, there we go. We have another one over there. So they're all starting to come through now. I think within the next few days they'll start coming up a lot more frequently. So it took about 6 days. That one over there is the Malawan Piquant, or the pepper dew. So they'll all come up in their own time, but I'm happy with that. One thing to notice here is it's a little bit dry over there, so we're going to give that a bit of a spray, but everywhere else looks okay. So I'm happy with that. A little bit of dryness over there as well. And that's it. We just close it back up. No need for light yet. Only when the leaves pop out, they're going to start searching for some light. So it's not long now when we'll need to put the lights in. So that's the end of this episode. I hope it was useful, and I hope you have good luck starting your seeds as well. Please make sure you're subscribed so you see when the next episode comes out. So the next episode will be all about the lights and getting your plants under some decent lights, whether that's natural light or artificial light. We'll talk about the different methods of doing that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.